Previously, Luo and his group had successfully completed the third zombie wave event. Afterward, Luo parted ways with her and arrived at another secret realm, where he cleared it and upgraded his gear. Not long after, he received a message from Yao and Miss Su, asking for his help with the second world boss. After considering their request, he agreed and sent them a location to meet. Now to this week's chapter. Time passed, and they all gathered at the location Luo had mentioned. Young Miss Su, her face showing clear surprise, remarked on why he had brought so many people along. Yao simply laughed, his men glancing at him as he acknowledged the formidable strength of the second daughter of the Su family while pointing out critical truth: she could not heal herself. Recognizing the mission to defeat the ultimate boss of the second world, Yao had taken the initiative to address a crucial gap. With Brother Luo's immense power and her exceptional control, he ensured the team was complete by bringing what they lacked: healers. Luo glanced back at the group, surprised by Yao's foresight. He remarked that if they were done discussing, he was ready to begin. A system window appeared, announcing that the tasks required to open the portal to the second world boss had been completed. It then stated that the portal could now be activated and reminded them that defeating the second world boss was necessary to progress to the third world. Noticing the presence of a group, the system prompted whether the challenge would be undertaken as a team. Seeing the question, he summoned the item awarded upon completing all the tasks. It glowed brightly in his hand before he directed it toward the option for yes. In an instant, a massive portal began to materialize before them. They watched as the swirling energy coalesced, forming a gateway that led to the boss. Moments later, the system announced that the second world boss dungeon was ready. He gazed at the portal and declared that it was time to go. Miss Su, doing her best to appear brave, nodded and commented that she was ready. Meanwhile, Yao commented that they needed to stay close to Brother Luo. They all agreed, and as they moved closer, Yao thought about how this would be his first time witnessing Brother Luo fight a world boss. The energy radiating from the portal was intense, its power a clear reflection of the strength of the dungeon. As they walked through, the air around them seemed to hum with the sheer force of what awaited on the other side. They arrived and stood at the edge of a cliff, gazing down at the ruined land below. The remnants of what appeared to have once been a massive city lay scattered across the landscape. Amid the devastation, a towering figure stood in the center, its name glowing red with the label Level 20 above it. Sensing something in its dungeon, the massive figure turned to face them. Its glowing red eyes locked onto their group, and at that moment, the system appeared with a red notification. The red color signified that the monster was far stronger than any of them. The system identified it as the Level 20 Zombie King, a physical-type monster and a 3-star boss. Yao marveled at the sheer size of the boss, struggling to comprehend that this towering monster was the second world boss. He commented that it was on a whole different level compared to the wild boar from the first world. One of his men, looking worried, questioned if they could even take on this boss, recalling how the level 17 boss from the secret realm had nearly wiped them out. Hearing their concerns, Luo stated firmly for Yao and his men not to move from their position. He then turned to Miss Su, reminding her to stay at a safe distance and not get too close, as this boss could wipe her out in a single hit. She agreed, though the immense pressure the boss radiated made her feel nervous, adding to the tension in the air. Luo then smiled, looking up as he commanded his pet to emerge, declaring that it was time for it to show off how much stronger it had become. The pet appeared, its eyes locked on the boss, and it let out a powerful roar. Luo recalled how he had gained a significant amount of experience and valuable items from the secret realm and the open world boss, the zombie tide. With that, the gap between his pet and the boss had greatly narrowed. Just then, the boss noticed Luo's pet, which was releasing a powerful aura. The boss immediately shifted into a battle-ready stance, its red eyes glaring as it called out, questioning if the humans were eager to taste the flavor of the afterlife. Suddenly, the boss noticed the marks where the pet had been standing and turned to search for it. However, it was too late. The pet had already launched itself, slamming into the massive figure with immense force. The impact dealt 555 damage, catching the boss completely off guard. Meanwhile, Luo capitalized on his pet's attack, conjuring a massive fireball above him. With a swift motion, he hurled it down, and it collided with the boss, erupting in flames. The boss screamed in pain as the attack struck. Luo observed the result and commented on how his new equipment had significantly improved his damage output. Realizing the extent of his newfound power, he remarked that with this boost, the boss was only slightly stronger than most regular monsters. But just then, the enraged boss rose to its full height, letting out a deafening scream that echoed through the ruins, commanding all the bugs around it to get lost. It turned to Luo's pet, swatting it away with a single powerful strike, sending it flying backward while calling it weak. The boss then fixed its glowing red eyes on the group, declaring that if they wanted to meet the afterlife, it would gladly show them the way. Raising its massive left arm, it positioned it in front of them, and the arm began to shift and morph, its shape twisting ominously. The boss slammed its mutated arm into the ground, causing massive tentacles to erupt in a straight line, tearing through the earth and splitting the group apart. The ground cracked violently near them, and they scrambled in panic to avoid the chaos. Meanwhile, Luo's pet saw an opportunity and roared as it charged in for another attack. This time, however, the boss was ready. With a swift motion, it struck the pet midair, sending it hurtling backward. The boss sneered, calling the earlier hit a fluke. The pet flew so far that it was launched toward Yao's group, which had been standing at a safer distance. Yao, understanding the critical role the pet played, shouted for his healers to focus on restoring it. He reminded them that it was their strongest tank and the only front line they had. The healers immediately began their work, pouring their energy into mending the pet's wounds. Yao felt reassured, knowing that bringing a large team of healers had been the right call. In just a few seconds, the pet was ready to fight again. Meanwhile, without a frontline tank, the boss turned its attention to the backline, roaring as it fixed its gaze on Luo. With a booming voice, it declared that the next bug was standing before it. However, just as it prepared to attack, the pet dashed forward, intercepting the strike and shielding Luo. The boss roared furiously, enraged to see the bug back in its way. Taking advantage of the moment, Miss Su stood firm and activated her control skill, locking the boss's arms in place. The boss struggled against the invisible force, snarling in frustration. It sneered, commenting bitterly that humans always relied on such lowly tricks. Miss Su was struggling to maintain control over the boss, her energy waning as she strained to keep its arms locked. She screamed at Luo to act quickly, warning that she couldn't hold the boss much longer. Luo stood firm, his expression calm and focused as he prepared his skill. Energy began to gather around him, crackling with intensity. As he looked up at the enraged boss, his face turned serious. He spoke with confidence, stating that humans didn't rely on tricks. The boss simply lacked the intelligence to understand what they called teamwork. Luo unleashed his powerful skill, the energy surging forward and smashing into the boss with devastating force. The impact caused the boss to stagger back, a sign of the immense damage it had taken. However, even as the attack landed, it became clear that this alone wasn't enough to finish the fight. Meanwhile, Yao was left stunned by Luo's overwhelming strength. He couldn't believe what he had just witnessed. The level 20 boss had lost nearly half its HP from a single attack. Shaking his head in disbelief, he remarked on how ridiculously high Luo's damage output was. But Luo wasn't done. Even as the boss staggered, he was already channeling another skill. His eyes began to glow with a fierce light, and crackling lightning surrounded him, surging with destructive energy. Standing tall, he declared with unwavering resolve that it was time to finish this fight. In an instant, the boss was struck by the lightning attack, the crackling energy covering its massive body. It roared in agony, screaming that this was not the end. However, as the skill reached its peak, the lightning surged through the boss, and moments later, the monstrous figure collapsed, falling face first into the ground. It crashed in front of Luo, who stood unfazed at the edge of the cliff, his gaze unwavering as the battle came to an end. Meanwhile, Yao screamed out in joy, praising how amazing brother Luo was. Miss Su, also thrilled, agreed, but couldn't help but question Luo about when his damage had increased so drastically. Luo remained silent, fully aware that the battle was far from over. Just then, the system chimed in, announcing that the boss's passive skill had been triggered. The system revealed that the destruction of heaven and earth skill had been activated. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and like. It really helps me out.